When we talk about 18th century Venice, it's more than just canals and gondolas, isn't it? We're looking at a major republic, still grand, but definitely, well, fading.
Absolutely. It was clinging to its legacy, using art and its sheer reputation as power, even as its actual political influence waned.
So today we're taking a deep dive into Venetian painting. We'll focus on two key figures, Canaletto and Francesco Guardi. They weren't just painting pretty pictures, they were, in a way, documenting this whole era, this decline,
Yeah.
but for very different people.
That's the crucial part. The 18th century, it was incredibly productive for Venetian art, especially these city views. But who was buying tells you a lot.
Right.
You see these two main styles pop up. One super precise, capturing all the state ceremonies, and another much more atmospheric, almost nostalgic.
One projecting strength, the other maybe hinting at the end.
Something like that.
Yeah.
One for the world, one perhaps more like an elegant goodbye note.
Okay, so our mission today, let's unpack the history, the politics hidden in these paintings. We're talking the super accurate vedute versus the more fantasy-like capriccio, looking for the stories in the brushstrokes. Let's start then with the big state moments. Antonio Canal, everyone knows him as Canaletto, truly a giant of the 18th century, and his specialty was the vedute, these incredibly precise city views.
And there's no better example of art meeting diplomacy than his big piece, Return of the Bucintoro to the Mollo near the Doge's palace.
It sounds grand.
It is, but it's not just a nice scene. It captures a really significant political event. You have to know the backstory.
Okay, lay it on us.
Well, relations between France and Venice had completely tanked back in 1709, mostly Louis IV's doing, so for over 10 years. No proper French ambassador in Venice. A big deal.
And then Louis VI comes along, wants to smooth things over.
Exactly. France needed allies, needed that connection with Venice, which still had prestige.
So enter the ambassador.
Precisely. In 1723, Louis sends Jacques Vincent Languet, Comte de Géry Graf de Jersey, they called him, with one main job. Fix the relationship. Canaletto's painting basically celebrates his success.
But there's a twist, isn't there? It wasn't straightforward.
Here's the Venetian swagger. They were famously shrewd, not sown from bast, as the saying went, immensely proud of their long history as a republic. They weren't just going to welcome France back with open arms.
So what happened when de Géry arrived in 23?
He shows up, letters from the king and everything, and the Venetian Senate just makes him wait.
Wait, how long?
3 years.
No way. 3 full years, the French envoy.
Yep. He had to cool his heels for 3 years before the Doge officially received him. It was an incredible display of, we don't need you as much as you need us. Real political theater.
Wow, so the painting captures the end of that waiting game.
Well, there's a companion piece showing his grand entrance after the 3 years. But this one, the Return of the Bucintoro, shows the Doge's special ship coming back to the dock.
Okay, tell us about this Bucintoro. It sounds important.
Oh, it was more than important. It was this incredibly lavish state barge, dripping in gold-rich fabrics, used only once a year, on Ascension Day for the marriage of Venice to the sea.
The marriage of the sea.
Yeah, the Doge would sail out and throw a consecrated gold ring into the Adriatic, a symbolic ritual asking for good fortune, harmony between the city and the sea it depended on. Pure statecraft and ceremony.
And Canaletto captures a specific detail related to the ambassador.
He does. The painting shows the whole procession returning to the Molo, the pier by the Doge's palace. And if you look really closely, you can spot de Géry's personal gondola in the flotilla.
So he's included.
And not just included, his gondola is decorated with French lilies, the fleur-de-lis. It's a visual confirmation. Relations restored. By letting him join this super exclusive ceremony, Venice acknowledged the reconciliation. And de Géry, well, he basically bought himself a permanent spot in Venetian history.
Now for Canaletto,
Yeah.
this must have been huge.
Career-defining. This painting and its partner piece were his first really major official commissions. They basically launched him into fame.
You can see why. The detail is amazing. The Piazzetta, the Doge's palace,
Right.
those 2 big columns, the library. It's all perfectly rendered.
Like a photograph almost. A celebration of the Republic looking its absolute best.
And that accuracy, that's the vedute style. You mentioned he used a tool, the camera obscura.
That's right. The camera obscura, literally dark room. It was key to achieving that level of precision, especially with complex architecture.
How did that work exactly? Was it like tracing?
Sort of, yeah. Think of a box or even a small darkened room with a tiny hole. Light comes through the hole and projects an inverted image of the outside scene onto a surface inside maybe paper or a screen.
Okay.
Canaletto could then use that projected image to trace the main lines, the perspective of buildings, the Doge's palace, the bell tower, whatever. It ensured everything was proportionally correct, spot-on perspective, without laborious geometric calculations.
So it's a mechanical aid for accuracy. Makes sense if your clients want a perfect record.
Exactly.
But here's a puzzle then. If Canaletto is the painter of Venice, capturing its landmarks so perfectly, why are so few of his paintings actually in Venice today? You find them everywhere else, but only a handful in Venetian museums.
Ah, that tells you everything about the money and the Republic's later stage. The main buyers, foreigners.
Not the Venetians themselves.
Overwhelmingly not. We're talking diplomats like de Guardi, rich merchants passing through, and especially the British aristocracy doing the grand tour.
Right, the grand tour. That essential trip for young nobles.
And Venice was a must-see stop. These wealthy foreigners wanted a high-quality souvenir, a tangible, accurate memory of this amazing city to take back home. They paid top dollar for these big, detailed canvases.
So the local nobles, a Venetian elite, they weren't commissioning these city views.
Not really on the same scale. They lived there. They didn't need a giant painting of the Piazza San Marco. They could walk out their door and see it. The market was driven by tourism, essentially. High-end tourism, but tourism nonetheless.
So Canaletto had these huge official commissions, like the Bucintoro piece, almost like state propaganda.
Right.
And then he had these incredibly detailed, large-scale views that were basically the ultimate luxury souvenir for rich tourists.
That's a good way to think about it. And you see this duality even in his smaller works, too. He didn't only paint the big parades.
What else?
He did these lovely, more intimate views of islands in the lagoon. There's one showing the arsenal, the shipyard, another with a church, Santa Maria del Vergine, which isn't even there anymore.
And these were different in feel.
Totally different, much quieter.
Yeah.
They show everyday life, people unloading boats, women chatting, just regular Venetians going about their business, not the big state performance.
But still bought by foreigners.
Pretty much, yeah. They wanted that personal slice of Venetian life to take home, alongside the grander views.
Okay, so that's Canaletto. Precise, bright, documenting the Republic's image, mostly for outsiders. Now, we need to shift. Let's talk about his contemporary, Francesco Guardi.
It's a completely different mood. Guardi, he's often called one of the last great painters of Venice, maybe even Italy. And the timing, it's poignant.
How so?
Guardi died in 1793. Just 6 years later, in 1799, the Venetian Republic, after 1,000 years of independence, ceased to exist. It lost its sovereignty.
Wow, so his career coincides with the very end.
Exactly, and you feel it in his work. There's this atmosphere of decline, a kind of melancholy nostalgia. It's like watching a beautiful sunset.
And he moves away from Canaletto's precise vedute style.
He does. He embraces the capriccio. It's a kind of landscape fantasy.
Fantasy, so not real places.
Sometimes. Or maybe mixing real buildings with imaginary elements, like adding Roman ruins into a Venetian scene where they don't belong. Or just interpreting a real view in a way that prioritizes mood and feeling over strict accuracy.
So it's less about documenting, more about evoking an emotion.
Precisely. It's about the atmosphere, the feeling. Think less photograph, more. Well, maybe like historical fiction set in paint. It suited the end times, that sense of looking back.
And his actual painting style reflects this. It's different from Canaletto's sharp lines.
Oh, completely different. Guardi's known for this really lively, quick brushwork, almost flickering. If you look at the little figures in his paintings, say, of the Piazzetta,
Yeah.
they're not static like Canaletto's often are. They seem to shimmer, to be in motion. It gives the scene energy, but also a sense of transience, like it's all about to dissolve.
Interesting. Capturing movement, but maybe also instability.
Perhaps it feels lived in, but maybe not permanent.
Now, we can't really talk about Francesco Guardi without mentioning his families,
Yeah.
right? It was a workshop situation.
Yes, very common then. The Guardi workshop was a family affair. For years, it was actually led by Francesco's older brother, Antonio Guardi.
And they worked together.
Often, yes, sometimes described as painting in four hands, which, makes sorting out exactly who painted what a bit tricky sometimes.
And did Antonio paint the same kinds of things as Francesco? Landscapes, city views.
Not primarily. While Francesco gravitated towards those atmospheric landscapes and capricci, Antonio was more focused on compositions with figures, often telling a story, a narrative scene.
Okay, and there's a key work of his we should look at.
Yes, his Alexander the Great at the body of King Darius. Because this painting, it really unlocks a fundamental shift in what people valued in art in 18th century Venice.
What shift was that?
It's this huge emphasis on, well, on the performance of painting itself, on improvisation, speed, technical skill, what they called virtuosity.
Ah, like with music at the time. Thinking of composers like Paganini, where the sheer brilliance of the playing was maybe even more important than the tune itself.
That's a perfect analogy. The focus really shifted. It wasn't just about the subject, the story being told anymore. It was increasingly about how the artist painted it, the mastery of the execution.
The painters showing off their skill.
Exactly. And Gian Antonio's Alexander the Great piece is a prime example. Because, get this, the composition itself wasn't even original.
You copied it.
He did. It was based on a painting done almost a century earlier by another artist, Languetti.
So, wouldn't people criticize that? Lack of originality?
Not in the way we might think today. The value wasn't in the original design. The value and why it was praised was precisely because Gian Antonio's execution was so different, so much freer, so much more dazzling.
So they were celebrating the reinterpretation, the technique.
Absolutely. His brushwork, his use of color, it was completely different from the earlier painting. It was faster, more spontaneous, showing off his incredible command of paint. It proved that a copy, if executed with this kind of virtuosic flair, was highly valued in its own right. The technique became the main event.
That's fascinating. The skill itself was the art.
In a way, yes. The 18th century in Venice was saying, show us how brilliantly you can do it.
What an incredible arc we've traced then. From Canaletto's sharp, bright, almost documentary vedute, selling Venetian magnificence to the world, to the Guardi's softer, atmospheric capriccio and these bravura figure paintings, where the feeling, the melancholy, and the sheer skill took center stage as the Republic itself faded.
It really is Venice in two acts. The first act is full of pomp, diplomatic power plays, that 3-year wait for the ambassador, projecting strength even as it maybe wasn't all there.
Right.
And the second act, captured by Guardi, feels like the twilight. Beautiful, maybe even more painterly, but imbued with the sense of an ending, where the ultimate value shifts to the brilliance of the performance itself, a final dazzling flourish.
The legacy, though, is undeniable. This city, this art, it's just breathtaking.
Absolutely. Venice gave the world something unique.
So here's something to think about as we wrap up. This idea that 18th century collectors started valuing the way something was made, the virtuosity, the improvisation, perhaps even more than the originality of the subject. That's quite a shift. It makes you wonder, what parallels do we see today? Think about modern culture, maybe music, cover songs, even theater or film adaptations. Are there times when we value a remake or an interpretation primarily for the artist's incredible technique or their unique, spontaneous take on it, rather than the original story or melody itself, where the how truly overshadows the what?